wonderful opportunity to hang out with Bob, who I'm sure will let you, maybe, will you let at the end a couple of questions?
Sure,
we can ask.
Yeah,
what is it like to be with His Holiness the way that you have been? That, okay, can we have that question?
Well, it has its ups and downs, like everything. But it's always wonderful, actually. He's actually, Nina, I was once with an Indian gentleman, and that gives me a good place to start, because in a way, after all of this, and listening to Frank, and listening to Krishna Das and Ram Das, I don't know what to do with all of you. I really don't know. I'm beyond me in a way. But that's a good place to start. We were with an Indian gentleman. We were actually in the Trump Tower, actually, one wealthy one, having lunch. And he came up to me, or came up to us, and he was sitting nearby this gentleman, which I won't name, but anyway, he said, well, you've known His Holiness the Dalai Lama for so long. Like, have you ever seen him perform a miracle? And so I was, taking my time to think of what to say, what to do. And, because, you're not supposed to talk about exceptional things, strange things. So Nina pipes up, many times. I'm like, oh, really? so then, I see the floor, and he's leaning forward like this in his chair, and he says, well, what was it? He says, and she said, well, I've been in many stressed situations with him, where there were many people, and everybody kind of wanting time with him and a piece of him, and a lot of things going on, and he's doing his representing the Tibetan people, and the Dharma, and the Buddha, and blah, blah, blah. And I have never seen him in all of those situations ever be with anybody where he didn't give them his complete and full attention. He said. And that's a miracle, she said. And the Indian guy goes, he wanted a rabbit out of a hat, he wanted a flower out of the Arctic or something, some strange thing. So that's the wisdom of women, the wisdom of reality, okay? So I thought, I was hearing that, Russell also put it, I think, very well earlier, about people being scared of dying, being even irritated, having to think about it, and he expressed that in a very, very nice way. And so I thought I would try to a little bit decontaminate it for you, and clarify some aspects. But first, maybe I need to share a little something, my own history, just very, very briefly. And I knew Ram Dass from Newton when he was Richard Alpert, and he was still at Harvard. I was an undergraduate at the time, and I was also exploring the mind and the psyche at that time. And I was rather intensely doing so because I had just lost my eye. I was married, actually, quite young. I was 20 years old, and I had a child, but I had lost the eye in an accident, so I was having a midlife crisis already at 20. And I knew I needed to go to India. So I was also, temporarily, while still in Cambridge, I was exploring the psyche, let's put it that way. And so naturally we were interested in Tim Leary and Richard Alpert and Ralph Metzner and the Center for Personality Research, where they were working. And so that was really fun. And then I went to India as a wanderer, seeker, beggar. And when I got to India, I really had a thing about the Buddha, and I wanted to learn about it. And I found out that it was a little bit underground in India, and this was 61, 62. But the Tibetans had just come out in exile. In 59 they had to escape, and the Dalai Lama was there. So I took a job teaching Tibetan English to some lamas in exchange for learning the Dharma, and I was very happy, and I was starting that out in 62. And then my father passed away, and I had to come back to New York, round trip though, going back there, because I had dropped out of American reality, so to speak. And while I was back for the funeral a few weeks, and I happened to just go to New Jersey, which is always a big trip for a Manhattan person, and worse than going to India. And because there was a Mongolian Lama there, and he had 3 or 4 young Lamas from the Dalai Lama's group, and he was looking for an English teacher. And I didn't really think I was gonna, I saw a little sign in a Zen center in New York. And so I went there, and just to see if I could carry a message back, or they had contacts for me when I would go back to really take up my job in India. And I met this man, and it was like meeting Maharaji, actually. And this man also is in Ram Dass's book. Ram Dass knew him, Richard Alpert knew him. Geshe Wangyal was his name, is a Mongolian Lama. You'll find him in Be Here Now. And he knew him a few times, and met him a few times before he went on to India and met Maharaji. So I see they're sort of in the same field. And when I met him, he was very discouraging, because when I got to there, we had to look all day. The guy who was driving me, a former classmate of mine from prep school, and we finally found this funny little house with a little deer and a wheel on top. It was like a tract house in a refugee area of New Jersey. And as soon as we found it and pulled up there, I started having butterflies in my stomach, and I couldn't walk. And I said, okay, let's go. Now we found it, we'll come back another time. Let's go. I don't want to go in now. And he's like, what? You have me driving all the way out here? You're going to India the day after tomorrow, and you don't want to go and see what's the matter with you. I said, well, I'm too impure. I said, there's a really important Lama in there. I can feel it. And I can't go in. I'm still smoking beedies. And then he insisted, and then the young Lamas came out of down to where the street was, and then they dragged me out. I went in there and I met this man. And then I said, and he was talking, and I didn't know, he was just a fine little guy, but I thought there was a big Lama in the back room, some big energy or something. And so at one point, finally, he talked to me. He said, well, what do you want? And I said, well, I want to attain higher awareness. I said. And he said, oh, that's a difficult path, he said. How can you travel such a path when you couldn't even come out here to New Jersey the way you're dressed and the way you look? If it wasn't that your friend drove you, because I was wearing Afghani pants and like a sadhu thing, and I didn't have a patch on my eye, and I had an empty eye socket, and I had a weird beard. I was a pre-hippie, but there were no hippies. There were no hippies at that time. And so he said, you first have to learn how to travel a path from New York to New Jersey before you can do that. So then I was all down like that. I was even having trouble speaking because I just felt this incredible power in the room. And so then finally he said, well, I know you're going back to India, so you should go, and come see me if you come back. But he said, on the other hand, one thing I think you could do is, and he pointed to a stack of books over there, and said, if you learn to read those books, I've been reading them. He says, I didn't become higher aware or anything, he said, but I've been reading them and they helped me a lot. I think they would help you. You would learn something. And so that's what you should do. So then I said, okay, please, you teach me that. I'm going to stay here. No, you can't stay here. Well, I'll come back, I said. So then I left, and as we were going down the driveway, the entryway, I said to my friend, I said, that's my teacher. I got it. He's the one. And I met many Sufis and Swamis and different people, Christian monks, through the Middle East, because I've been a year's pilgrimage getting there to India. And he said, you're just going back to India tomorrow. How can you do that? I said, no, he's my guru. I have to study with him. And he said, well, what's so special about him? And I said, well, I know I can trust him. And he said, well, how do you know that? And then I said, because he's not there, I said. And I had no idea what I was saying, actually, but of course it was a very astute statement, actually, but I didn't know what it meant, but it came out anyway. And what it meant was, he didn't have an agenda for me. He was there, he was represented, he was like they say about Maharaji, like Krishna Das and Ram Dass say, his presence was a field, and in that field you felt in touch with reality. And maybe it gave you a mirror image you didn't like exactly or something like that, but you could just feel it was the field. And also he didn't really have a plan to have me go to work in his restaurant. These gurus who have building an empire of some kind or something like that, they always have, they use people. But he had no use for me, really. Maybe to teach English to the young Lama. But basically that was just a temporary wave since I didn't have any money. of serving while learning. And so I went home, shaved, jeans, put a patch on my eye, became like, zipped back down there looking over it to salute in a bus the next day. And he started to teach me Tibetan, and he read me a book of Nagarjuna's called The Letter to a King, Advice to a Lay King, by the great Nagarjuna about 2,000 years ago in India. And every syllable, every word just was like liquid gold. It just flowed straight into my heart. And it was like a total home. I was speaking Tibetan fluently in 10 weeks. And I was already annoying some of the lamas, actually, by arguing with them and debating with them and this kind of thing. So then he passed away in 1983. And he knew Richard / Ram Dass well, and he admired him and supported him. And but he had a feel like that too, like Guru Maharaji, I think. So I feel the same sense of gratitude to him, and nowadays Maharaji as well. I feel no duality between the fields of these beings. And this has to do with this concept that I did mention the other day about enlightened beings. The way the Buddhists express it, they say an enlightened being has a dharmakaya, and dharma in that context doesn't mean duty or religion or something like that, like it might in the Gita, the dharma of Arjuna is to fight because he's a warrior. But dharma doesn't mean that in that context. Dharma means reality itself. So dharmakaya means kaya means a body. So it means an enlightened person feels that all reality is their body. Like you and I might do this, say, this is my body, and we sort of, it's the skin bag, and what's in it, and we feel that's our body. And then maybe we were in love. I hope you've all been in love lots of times, or could be with the same person, hopefully, sometimes, but that you've really been where you could be with a child, it's not always romantic, where you really feel the other is sort of you. It's even the best part of you. And you have love, which we define in Sanskrit, the word Maitri. We define the word love as the will to the happiness of the beloved being. So it's where the other one is the greater part of you, or something like that. Technically, that's how love is defined. And it's the same. Compassion is the same thing, except it's then therefore not tolerating the beloved to suffer. So the two are like two sides of a flow. Love is sharing your own sense of whatever you think happiness is, and compassion is taking away the suffering as best you can, and replacing it with happiness, right? So imagine, so then what an enlightened person is someone who is not like in love romantically, or just in love with one child, or within the family, or within their own tribe, or within their own religion, or within their own caste, or class, or whatever it may be. It is someone who has fallen in love with the whole universe, with all the beings and all the things, as well as beings. In other words, even the inanimate things, with the earth, with the water, with everything. So that's what those kind of beings are. And, this thing people worrying earlier on, oh, don't leave us, and I also added to that, poor Ram Dass was trying to have lunch. And I said, please don't die. I added that, even though, it's because people want you to help them, but it isn't just that, it's that your teaching is so powerful now. Because in our materialist culture, you're someone who should be, seeking euthanasia because you feel so much pain. And yet you're there bravely giving out love and teaching and drawing people to find their own reality. And that's so precious and valuable. So, I was a poor guy. All this lunch, I'm afraid. But anyway, I did add that to him. So I feel this is the field that this retreat is in, and I feel very honored and privileged to be here in this field of love, with all of you. Love meaning the will to everyone's happiness, basically that's what love is. Now, one factor that's in there one thing that might let people feel a little less worried is that the basis, although Buddha is very careful about it, and other great teachers are very careful about it, but the real basis of it is the Ananda part. In Vedanta they say Satchit Ananda, the nature of ultimate reality, being, awareness, and bliss. Satchit Ananda. So Ananda means joy or bliss, and Sukha also means bliss. And the bliss is very key. And actually Ram Dass, for example, is someone who has experienced in his life a tremendous amount of bliss. We mustn't underestimate the role of the entheogenic in his life. You know, it's good because there's been this horrible reaction in our culture for the last 50 years of people of the ilk of our current, Attorney General, who are very much afraid of bliss, and they want to make sure it stays illegal. And I don't mean any particular substance. What I mean is, you know, the actual bliss of being's health. Every single one of you has bliss. In fact, your health is your bliss. Why are your cells, for example, if you have a nice arm or body or belly or chest or bones, marrow, brain, it's because one cell likes the cell next to it. Those cells like each other. Oh, let's have some protein and do something. Let's move the muscles. Let's do some yoga. Let's stretch. Let's not do, you know. So your inner bliss is actually everyone has, but you know you're taught that you can't have such a thing. It's very guarded. Oh no, that maybe Jesus had bliss, you know, after he got strung up and escaped, you know, or Maharaji has bliss, or somebody else does. But we're not allowed to, because you have to. You have to obey somebody, and when people are blissful, they don't necessarily feel like obeying. And you know, we all know that, and even the commercial monstrosity that our culture has become knows that. Do you all know the Zoloft commercial? Has anybody seen that? No. You don't know that? You know, Zoloft is, you know, is a mood-enhancing thing. Really pathetic one compared to some good ones, but it's one that they can sell. It's one that they can sell, and it's a commercial where there's a lady in a kitchen with a window outside looking onto a suburban sort of garden field, you know, with some yellow flowers in the field, you know. And she's having a terrible time. And the kid had just thrown his porridge on the floor. The dog is doing some like unbelievably horrible thing. She's just burned one of those plastic waffles that they sell you know, filled with peanut genes, and it's smoking. And the husband looks really cranky and like, where's my paper and my coffee? And she's like, like this, you know. And then the camera pans every few seconds out the window. And the yellow flowers come off their stalks, and they arrange themselves in a pattern, and it says, Zola. So then you know that she took one. So then, it's like, oh, the dog out the door, eat your porridge, kid, a new waffle in the thing, toaster, husband, get your own coffee, and she's just totally great. And then they go on that long aftertale in the commercial about how if you start feeling like an axe murderer, if you take this for go to your doctor. You know, those kind of commercials. So in other words, the Zoloft is supposed to provide that sense of zing, that sense of bliss. And we all know that's when we really do whatever it is well. And that's the essence of compassion. You cannot really, you know, really feel that someone who's suffering really shouldn't be suffering unless you have a sense of what it's like to be free of suffering and realizing that they too have that. You have to see the bliss in the one even though they're suffering. You see that way. Someone like Maharaji did that. Geshe Wangyal, my Maharaji, did that. The Dalai Lama does that. People ask him, oh, you're having this terrible thing, this genocide going on in Tibet by the Chinese communists, it's going on for 60-some years. How do you remain cheerful and happy anyway? Even though you're not happy, you're not accepting it, you're speaking out, you're going everywhere all over the planet trying to speak up and get people to put a little pressure on the dictators and so forth not to do it. But you personally, you remain happy. Well, the point is, if you want to be effective compassion, you have to be happy. If you know, people who are suffering, they're not interested in you're lying down in bed next to them and saying, yeah, we're really suffering. That doesn't really help them. They want someone who has a feeling better. But, you know, is not showing off that and having schadenfreude, but is then therefore, out of that better feeling, able to do something. You know, it's like the mother who's with the child at the checkout counter in the grocery store, and the child is in front of that huge stack and array of candy that they put there to freak out the mother and to sell it to the child. And then the child is having a tantrum, and the mother doesn't know what to do, and she's trying to pay the bill. And you know, but when she feels really good, she completely distracts that kid. She's like, oh, hey, what, you want something? But if she has a headache or something, then, oh yeah, and she might even give them a smack and then they'll have her arrested. You know? And, if it gets really bad. You know? Or she might buy 10 candies and then be having to pay for the diabetes in another 10 years. So bliss is a very big key, and that's really what this is all about. No death, no fear. You know, it sounds very brave and wonderful, but actually it has to do with bliss. You know? And so coming back to Ram Dass, you know, the entheogenics, you know, the psychedelics, all natural societies have some kind of sacrament, but it's a sacrament with a kick. It's not just Manischewitz. It has a little kick, and it temporarily melts down. It melts down the conditioning structures that you're supposed to be obediently inhabited by. You know, the voice of your culture. You know, mine used to be the voice of Walter Cronkite. And some of you older people know what I mean. That was a reality voice, you know. And the reality voice is like the voice that tells you, like, don't be too happy, that's dangerous. Oh, that's not right. Oh, yes, it's awful. Oh, there's nothing you can do about it. Oh, lead a life of quiet desperation, as Mr. Thoreau said about 150 years ago or something. And more than 170 years ago. And so that voice temporarily gets suspended. Now, if someone just does that, then they'll end up like poor David in a tree. And so it's not that by itself, but that sort of opens a veil. And then the people like Ram Dass, then they find out how to do that permanently. Remember, he understood who Maharaji was, because he gave that veil-opening stuff to Maharaji, and Maharaji was just the same. Therefore, he knew by inference that Maharaji was living without the veil, and you could do that. And then he decided to do that himself. You know? So that's very, very key. So we must remember that the key to Maharaji, key to our living, you know, representative of Maharaji, our channel, our vessels of Maharaji, which is this group, that they do have this bliss. And that is the key thing that you all have to have and have to find on this retreat. You have to have bliss. And when you're into like, oh, it's so awful, you know, like that, then that's a kind of version of, it's called the pride of humility, actually. It's a mental affliction, actually. You have to get over it. And people who died, if you lost them, you know, they're not sitting up in heaven like with a misery meter saying, oh, good, they're still miserable. No way. They want you to be happy. So, you know, we should remember that. That's very, very key. But the second thing I wanted to do, the way I wanted to approach this, is with the fact that, you know, now that Yogi Berra got us past the anxiety of the Buddhist-Hindu division, which I'm so thrilled, right? Right? So, because we're all taking the fork, right? So we're all going both branches, that means. That's very good. I really like that. Imagine coming to Maharaji's field and being spoken to by Yogi Berra. And that is this. Everyone's scared of dying. Someone was saying yesterday, well, you must help them. Everyone's so worried about it. Well, excuse me. How much do you hate falling to sleep at night? Any of you? Don't you love it? Ah, it's all over now. Oh, it was great. The lecture was great. The chant was great. The teaching was great. The beach was great. The water was great. The food was great. And that's enough of it all. Don't you love it? Well, you fall asleep because you entrust yourself to absolute nothingness. You lose consciousness. You're happy to get rid of it. No consciousness. If you don't lose it, you want, where's my Ambien? Give me a sleeping pill. Right? Oh, I feel terrible tomorrow. You know, you love losing consciousness. Why do you think people got into the opioid thing? Because they lost their jobs. Because they wanted to lose consciousness while they were awake. The human being is very escapist. You know, the unenlightened one, because they have this problem that they think their real self is something separate from their body, and therefore they are ignoring the actual bliss of their life force. And then they feel, therefore, they don't have enough happiness. They're dissatisfied with everything. And yet all they can do is worry about, how happy am I? Was that the great talk? Oh, that was great, but was it really the greatest? Could it be a better one some other time? Oh, it was much better before when I saw so-so. If someone else was here, I'd be so much happier. If my guru was here, oh, I'd be happy. So then, when you think about evaluating how much you have, you're unhappy. And what is the source of your unhappiness? Is it lack of like anything you could possibly want in the moment? No. It is that you are not appreciating everything that is there. You are not seeing the bliss in your fingertip. Your fingertip would be growing a weird growth if it was miserable, because it would not worry about some other weird intruder in there. You know, it wouldn't be embracing the intruder and turning into something useful. You know, that's what we do when we eat food. We put in alien substances and then our happy microbiome. You know about the microbiome? You know that you're a community of 1 million billion beings, and you're a miserable 23,000 genes you have as a little bit of hairless chimpanzee, which is what we are. You know, we have about 23,000 genes. They thought they were going to really get, you know, the scientists, the materialists, thought they would really control everything with that. And then they found we have like 1 billion genes in our microbiome, all these little bugs. Those mango-eating bugs, there's billions of them in your stomach. And they enjoy being in your stomach, and they love it. And they go in there, and you put in some weird hot dog with weird sauce and strange chemicals and MSG and I don't know what all, entrails of like some rancher with some dead cow, and in there, and then they turn it into something nice because they're so happy. But are you aware of the happiness of your microbiome? No. So I don't know, where's Guruji? Okay? And then when you fall asleep, then this is a very important thing. When you fall asleep, you go through all the stages of consciousness dissolution that you will go through at death. Which I'm sorry, we all are definitely going to go through that. Even enlightened persons, you know, the reason enlightened persons do that, though, so the really enlightened person is not ordinary. Don't believe this crap about, oh, you get all enlightened and then it's the same old dishes to wash. Something like that. No way. You know, don't believe any of this, oh, enlightenment was so great and then now I'm washing dishes. If you hear that, that's not, that guy missed the boat. if they say, I got enlightened and now washing dishes is ecstasy, then it's okay. Because then the ordinary thing, you're doing it in the moment of being aware that it is ecstasy. We are so lucky. You know, how lucky are you all here? We're all so incredibly lucky. We're human beings. We ate a lot of mangoes. We were bugs a lot of times. And, you know, bugs that can be happy too. In our microbiome, they're happy. But because, you know, they get to see Guruji, you know, they're in there digesting that rice and dal, and then somehow through you, they get in contact in the field of enlightened being. But, so your bugs are happier than other people's bugs, you know. But the thing is, you're so lucky because you're a human being. And do you think it's easy to become a human being? Of course, you think that, yeah, it just happened naturally, you know, my genes did it, they told. Materialism is one of the most psychotic worldviews that can be, definitely. These people, either Hindu or Buddhist, these people in India, they are great scientists. They are not religious fanatics. There are many religious fanatics, of course, in every form, Buddhist as well as Hindu, as well as whatever. Although Hindu isn't really a proper word, either Vaishnavite, Shaivite, Shaktite. You know, there are different religions in India. Hindu is just a word made up by Arabs to cover all religions ever existing in India. It isn't really a particular one. But my point is, their main thing is science. They had their great universities where they didn't have a dark age, by the way, when we were having a dark age in Italy and Europe. They were having these fabulous universities, and the queen and the king of the sciences was what they called inner science. And inner science is how to manage your mind and how to come prepared to Baba Ram Dass's, you know, statements about the 3 levels of the soul level and then the 1 level. The one, the soul, and the meat puppet, you know, he talks about, you know. when he told me at lunch, I was saying non-duality, non-duality, and then he was saying, I'm a dualist. And I said, yes, well, non-duality supports dualism. Non-duality loves dualism. That's why it's non-duality and not just monism, oneness. It's non-duality. Non-duality means that we're all already in the soul, all of us, already now. You're already in Nirvana. That's really what non-duality means. You're already with Brahma. This is Brahma, okay? Guruji is with you. You can't be separated from Guruji. Those who are missing Guruji because he's dead, were missing him when he was alive. Unless they were like in his lap all the time. Like a few of them. Where but he kept kicking you out on the other hand. Driver, go back to America. You know, you can't miss these people, these beings who are you. Don't you understand? Your Buddha nature is all the Buddhas in you. Is all the great Maharajis in you. It's in you. You are completely enfolded in fully enlightened beings. And but the problem, you see, their problem, they have a problem. Buddha has a problem. Okay, imagine this. You fall in love with all beings. You see them like you see a beauty is in the eye of the beholder, right? They all look absolutely beautiful to you. Totally beautiful. There's no, it's not no judgment. It's that they all look beautiful. Completely, like when you're fully in love. Then, all of them. Then, you feel therefore one with them. Then, and you can do that because you see them all as made of bliss. They are all Brahma's best effort, you know? Their embodiment. They're just fabulous. Especially human ones have come to a point where they could conceivably understand that themselves. So they're especially to be fussed over. The gods are also very smart, but the gods tend to be self-indulgent because they're gods. You know? So like, you know, they wouldn't come to the lecture here or the talk. They'd be in this, floating in the jacuzzi all day long. For 50 million years. They have 50 million year long jacuzzis. So they don't like to come out and listen to a Dharma talk, or meditate. But humans, we're vulnerable. We're like, but we're these incredibly intelligent, divine intelligent bliss beings. And so they really like us, all enlightened beings, because they're like our moms. How about the nightmare of thinking that every being that you see is like your only beloved child? How about that? Anybody been a mom? Did you lose some sleep? Did you get worried when the kid was sick? Did you freak out? Now, how about you think that way about every being? How could you possibly manage that? Well, and then even the problem is this. You're in bliss. You see them all as bliss, but you can't blound them into bliss. A paranoid person, I want my boundary. You know, don't step on my toe. People in the subway, I have my boundary. Don't sit next to me. Subway, you know? People sit down 2 seats in the New York subway, so nobody can get that close to them. Right? They don't mind the little ridge in the crack there, so nobody else can get the seat. So everybody's got their boundary, right? So you go up to a paranoiac and you flood them with bliss, and what are they going to do? They're going to think it's smackdown time. So you are them, and you feel their bliss. At the same time, you feel that they don't feel it. So what do? You enfold them in a lila that gets them to discover their own self. Do you follow? That's the trick, and that's why the greatest of all gifts for Buddhism or Hinduism is not the gift of material things. It's not the gift of protection, although those are two really important generosities and gifts. But it's the gift of teaching. It's the gift of sharing the Dharma with them. Getting them to read the Bhagavad Gita. You know, getting them to read the Mahayana Sutra, the Vimalakirti Sutra. I love that. How many of you have ever seen my Vimalakirti Sutra? Oh, Brian has seen it. Very few of you. Wonderful Indian, or the Flower Ornament Sutra. These are wonderful Indian teachings that are so beautiful and extraordinary. They really are. And, you know, the Yoga Vasishta. How many of you ever heard of the Yoga Vasishta? That's a great Hindu one. So the imagination of why was the Indian imagination so fantastic? Because they were allowed to, because they were a wealthier country. India was the California of ancient Eurasia. The kings and queens were less involved in war and less involved in this and that because they were all like listening to Krishna Das's previous lives chanting. Yeah, Krishna, Krishna, yeah. And they even shifted, they got Krishna out of his chariot in the Mahabharata war, and they grabbed the guy and they got him out there chasing the gopis. And, you know, in love with Radha. So India, that wasn't just automatically happened, naturally. That happened because people went to, India was on a long retreat with people like Maharaji. People like you in India were on a long retreat, like 1,000-year retreat. Before that, the time of Buddha's time of Vedas in India, the Persians couldn't conquer India. They were very tough, you know. They were like those guys in Lord of the Rings who had those big elephant things with archers on the top. Remember them, the war? The Indians were like that. And even the Macedonians, you know, Alexander the Great couldn't conquer them. But after like 1,000 years of going to Baba Ram Das Maharaji Buddha retreats, they were pushovers. But they chose that vulnerability because that's the way to be happy. When you're open, you're vulnerable, but then you're also happy when you're open, you know. And you can absorb the suffering, as Frank so beautifully said, by being open, because you have awareness of your deeper inner bliss. You know, give and take meditation, that thing that I think who was teaching, Roshi John was teaching. So give and take, where you give out your happiness as you exhale in the form of light, and you draw in other beings suffering in the form of smoke or mist, you know, or some dark thing, and you bring that in, and then you go out. But how can you do that if you don't have an engine of bliss in your heart? And what is the engine of bliss in your heart? It's the wisdom of knowing reality. So what the inner scientists, the Indian inner scientists did, is they discovered the inner reality to the extreme case. Our modern psychology has not yet caught up with them. That's why you have a Harvard psychologist here, sitting there, you know, who's a disciple of Maharaji, and who is be love now, instead of let's sacrifice a few rats and cats and things and see if we can find a neurotransmitter that we can that Novartis can sell you so you'll feel loving. That's what the academic psychologists do nowadays. Trust me. And they're the Brahmins of our culture because they do sacrifice, you know, sacrifice animals to find out how to save us, which is a bunch of BS. And I don't mean Buddhist studies. And that's what he discovered. It's not only that he discovered a great guru, he discovered the science of the mind that's behind it. How you can become loving and devoted. You have to have wisdom. Now, there are 3 types of wisdom in the Buddhist psychology. The Indian psychology will tell you. Well, only 4 types. The first type 4 types of compassion. The first type of compassion is in a way called false compassion. And it's called, or sometimes called, sentimental compassion. And it's said to be the compassion that has a concept of love. And it's good too, actually. The reason they call it false or sentimental is that it wears out the person. You know, you get compassion fatigue, as they call it. With just the idea that you want to be, you know, feel sorry for the suffering being, and you should feel sorry for them, this will totally wear you out, because if it's not combined with a level of wisdom, the knowing the reality of that being, you will be subliminally feeling that that's just the way they are, the way they suffer. So you will have no drive to take away that suffering, to replace it with bliss. You will not be able to have that kind of energy. You'll have a kind of empathy maybe, but that will wear you out. Actually, so Roshi Jones' book really makes a big fuss about all of that, about being worn out and going over the edge. That's the edge she talks about, and that's a good thing to warn about. And that's because there's no wisdom in it. The first compassion that's really genuine, that has power, goes along with the wisdom of impermanence, which is why death is so valuable to think about. Stop resisting thinking about, where's Russell? Stop resisting it, because it's a way to be happy. If you think about your death, you'll be more happy, because you realize you're not dead. About death. If you think about you will be, and then you realize you're not, wow, you suddenly can appreciate something about the present. If you don't, your death is sort of lurking there, because you did, subliminally you know about it, and then you pretend you don't, and you're going to be here forever, and I'll be happy later, and you're just running around, but it's lurking there, and so you're much less happy, and you take for granted being alive, and you don't decide you're going to really rise above whatever it is, and really enjoy, and really be loving, and really do it now. So you get very like that. So the wisdom of impermanence grows from reflecting on the reality of your own death. And of course, they have all great yogis, not just Buddhists, Christians. You know, those Franciscan monks, they have a skull in their room. They have it's a little candle holder. They have a skull, and that's to remind them that they are just there, so they will be in the moment of a certain positive thing, because they're called three roots of the meditation on the immediacy of death. Or remember, some of you older people might have read Carlos Castaneda. You know, that idea of taking death as your advisor. That's a brilliant idea from the Yaqui tradition, from the Native American shamanistic tradition. That's wonderful. So really reflect on your own death and think about your own skull. And what's her name? Lama Tsutren. I think she told people in other years about this thing about, you know, think of giving your flesh to demons to eat. That's a little extreme. But that's advanced, that might freak out every now. The main point is really become aware of that. Then the second root is called realize that you don't know when it will be. And, you know, it could happen any time. And it's no guarantee that someone who's very sick, who has a lot of pain, it's no guarantee that person will die before someone who thinks they're very healthy. You know, it can strike at any time. We all know that. Then that brings you even more into the moment. You're definitely going to die, but you're alive, so I'm really happy. Then, I don't know how long I'll be alive, so this could be my last day. This could be my last moment. You begin to get that level of intensity in the moment. This really brings you in the moment. Then third root is, when I do, it is my soul that will go with me. And then there gets to be controversy about exactly what is that soul. But what the soul is, something like, we have a concept in the Buddhist science called the soul gene. And it's like a super subtle process wherein the residue of your deeds in life, but not just this life, many previous lives, are encoded. And then that's why, and that's the third gene that matches up with the two, why you picked the parents that you did. Now, if you have trouble with your parents, the great thing about the karma law, not just for Buddhists, for Hindus, for Jains, for anybody in the East, and a lot of people in other cultures too, the wonderful thing is, you know, when the adolescent says to the parent, I didn't ask to be born in this family, it's my life, you can say, yes, you did. Yes, you did. Your mother and I, or your father and I, well, we were being a little bit open-boundary there. We were getting it on, and then suddenly you showed up. And you didn't bring with you your tuition payments and your insurance coverage or anything, and here you are. And at first you're a total stranger. Thank goodness that your mom subliminally knows that you were her mom in a previous life, so therefore she really takes care of you. Otherwise, we all depend on the kindness of strangers for at least 40 years, actually. Even though we only admit to the first 10 in this culture, right? So that's a really cool thing. But then, of course, she can also speak back to you when she's the 13-year-old who says that, but then they can say, yes, but I wasn't made by you. Thanks for the genes, for the blood and bone, you know, for the flesh and bone, mother and father genes, but I have my own spiritual genes, so I have my own destiny, and I don't have to be a lawyer. I don't have to go to Yale, right? Or I don't have to do whatever exactly you did, right? And that gives you the right, the karmic causality, understanding of that gives you that right too. So the first level is the level of knowing impermanence. So when you have the wisdom of impermanence, and therefore when you see other beings who are suffering, and you realize that that will pass, that they could be happy actually, and then you can connect to your deeper vision of their actual bliss nature. You can connect that to which may not be fully manifest to you yet. You can connect it to the fact that at least this suffering condition will change. And then your own bliss will rise in you with skill, with skillful means, with art, with artfulness. Upaya, the word upaya means artfulness, art. And the art, you know, every mother knows the art of making that kid get out of the tantrum, of making someone feel better, you know. Everyone knows the kind of art of getting their friend out of the dumps, you know, out of the bad vibe, you know. We're all artful, you know. And so when you feel compassion for beings, then what your compassion expresses itself is art. Your life becomes art, you know, a work of art for others. You know. That's what Maharaji was, a great work of art. He was like a lila, he called it, lila, play, you know. Buddha's own autobiography is called Lalita Vistara, which means the greatest show on earth. Circus, like a circus. Yes, Lalita means a play, in the same double meaning as our word play. You know, the drama. You know, he's always talking about a movie and a drama, Baba Ramdas is. That's what it is. But then you become an artist of that play. When you have real love for beings, because you have to create a work of art to draw them out, to draw their imagination out. When someone has, their imagination is routinized and stuck in a routine concept of, I'm so miserable, I don't have enough, I'm not good enough, I'm not smart enough, I'm not pretty enough, I'm not handsome enough, I'm not strong enough, I'm not rich enough, I'm not whatever it is, then how do you get them to free their imagination to imagine themselves as happy, or imagine what happiness is? That's where you become artists, right? You don't just leave that to a few guys in Greenwich Village. Everybody becomes artists. So then the second level of compassion is the compassion, it says the compassion that, and that first one is the compassion that's combined with the wisdom of impermanence and that sees personalities, you know, beings as personalities, but sees them as impermanent, changing personalities, so it doesn't get stuck with them on one kind of suffering personality that they have, okay? And the second level is combined with what they call personal selflessness. So this is where you have an experience that in Zen has always good expressions. You have the experience as if your face fell off. You know what I'm talking about? Did you ever have an experience like that? You know, it means, you know, persona. You know what persona means in Latin? It means a mask. So when you have a rigid personality identity, then you're always putting up a certain mask between you and life. And then sometimes you have these blown away experiences. It doesn't have to be with a psychedelic, it doesn't have to be a religious thing, could be in a chant, could be something like that. But somehow your face is not the screen between you and reality. Somehow, or you could fall in love, or you could be blown away by aesthetic experience, and somehow the sort of upholding your rigid personality disappears from you. And at that time, you see other beings as a process. You don't see them as a rigid personality either, because you no longer have a sense of rigid personality. You become responsible for constructing your personality. And you realize that your personality is a constellation of rigidified habits. And so you begin to replace those habits. You begin to make better habits, you know. Instead of thinking about how miserable you are because of, you know, something, you know, something you failed in something, you start just thinking of the name of God. Then you think that, and that becomes, then your connection to that becomes your new personality. And you have to keep shaping it like that as you follow. That's mantra, and all these things relate to that. But then the highest one, the highest compassion, is called the compassion that does not perceive anything. And that compassion is one where, which Frank so beautifully talked about earlier, where it's natural. And you naturally just feel suffering. When you feel the suffering in another being, and it just seems wrong that it's like that. You don't see them as another being. You literally feel it with them, and you automatically do whatever it takes to help them free themselves from that. You become walking therapy person. I mean, all mothers are walking therapy persons, right? So that's not so remote to us all. And all good people, in a way, are ready to cure and heal anybody who's around them. We all do. That is the fabric of our life. The news are constantly showing murders, accidents, and ridiculous politicians and other people. And they don't show us, you know, like what Gandhi, you know, in the wonderful Gandhi movie and in his biography, when he was asked when some strike failed, nonviolent protest failed, because people got angry and they had a riot and they killed some people, so then he called it off. Someone asked him, don't you ever get discouraged about human beings? He says, no, I don't. There were some people did some bad things there, so I'm not doing this thing now, not to turning the temperature down. But during the time that that happened, millions of people didn't harm each other. Millions of people helped each other find a chair, have a glass of water, do something. Billions of them nowadays. We are so lucky. People are so nice. They really are. They are lovely. That's why they are so sick of all their governments in every country. You know? And they want better ones. And it's just that they're not being listened to. The process isn't working. Mothers have not wanted wars for thousands of years. Now, they march down to Washington in big numbers. Before that, they were still complacent, and 40%, 60% didn't vote. But then they all marched, and now they're all going to vote in 4 or 5 months. And then we'll see a difference. You better. And make others help. Share your bliss by voting. Kirsten Das Country talks about, I didn't have a vote, they didn't have a vote. But we do have a vote. So we should vote. If we have 90% vote, believe me, those guys will go back to their golf courses. They will just stay on the golf courses. They really will. They can make many deals if they want on the golf course. They can implement them. They can drill in the golf courses. They can frack the golf courses. See how much gas they get out of that. Okay, I shouldn't do that. So let's come back to sleep. So you love falling asleep, don't you? Now, this is something that I normally only share with people when they come to Tibet Houses Retreat Center, which is not as nice as this one, because we only have 120 people or something in the Catskills, and it's only in the summer. But this is special sleep yoga, okay? And why is that? When you sleep, you turn off all the lights, you close the doors, you put in earplugs if you're in a noisy place, and you shut down your senses, right? So you go down through a meditation where you stop seeing things, you stop hearing things, you stop smelling things, or maybe you have a nice lavender scented pillow, so you're content with one smell, but then you give that up. You stop tasting things, because you brush your teeth, and still out after that rice and dal that you ate. And then you stop feeling tactile sensations, but last one is the nice soft pillow. So you shut down your 5 senses. And then your mental sense, you also let it go away. And you want something, if it doesn't go away and keeps you from falling asleep, you're irritated with it, and then whatever, take an Ambien or something. But anyway, you do that. That's exactly what happens to you at death, actually, in some form or another. You want to have a peaceful death in your home bed. If you're lucky, people pray to do that. But even if it's sudden, you still go through the same stages. And then we normally don't notice. But according to the scientists, this is not religious business, this is scientific reports from the equivalent of materialist astronauts, which I call them psychonauts, the voyagers in the psyche. And they have done not near-death experience, they have post-death experience. And you know, some people have had, where's my Australian friend with a post-death? We have a post-death guy right here. I don't know where he is, but where is he? Oh, I don't know what happened. Oh, I'm sorry. But anyway, never mind. Australian guy. He had a post-death experience because he was clinically dead for 22 minutes. But these are guys who don't get revived by electric shock or a doctor or something, but they actually go through death, and then in another life they remember that because they're able to lucidly die. And actually, if we knew how to lucidly fall asleep, we would then go through 3 more stages, which we do every single night, actually, according to these scientists, which is we would see a white light, like a moonlit, like vast space, white light. We would see a light like that. Not a moon, but moonlight, just moonlight. And then the moonlight, then our consciousness in that moonlight expands because we're used to sort of, the subjectivity actually melts into the moonlight and there's no sense of subject-object actually. But we're not comfortable with that. We're used to being boundaried. So then the consciousness wants to expand in that, and it kind of can, there's a little mini explosion. And that turns it, kind of heats it, and it becomes reddish like a sunlight. And then that becomes strenuous, and then it becomes nice and dark light. That's a brilliant darkness. And then we're unconscious. We're asleep in that darkness, right? And then we wrongly think, all of us, that we spend the night in a simulated state of nothingness. That's what we think. But I have this one question to ask you. If you were lying in nothingness, your body, your cells, your brain, everything, all night long, 8 hours, whatever, 10 hours, 7 hours, why would you feel energized in the morning? How come you feel all ready to go in the morning? Nothing gave you energy? Excuse me. How did it do that? There was a big bang and a nonsense idea? Guys, I have a news flash. Nothing is nothing. Therefore, it's not a place. It has no energy. It's not there. So darkness is not nothing. So you're not lying in nothing. What happens when your busy mind is turned off, when you let it become unconscious because you feel safe enough, is you go into what is called clear light. Clear light is Satchit Ananda. You're familiar with that from Vedanta, right? People like Hinduism. Satchit Ananda. Being, awareness, bliss. When you say awareness, well, wait a minute, I didn't wake up. No, because it's not your subject-object awareness. It's not your boundaried awareness. And actually all the awareness you have is the nothing state in which you went unconscious, in which you sort of let go of all your cells. You let go of everything. And then instead of lying in nothingness, you are lying in a kind of infinite bed of infinite energy, ready to resupply any kind of cell that felt a little depleted. Anything that has a problem, and it's just humming there, right? You're like in a Borg spaceship, and you're standing there and you're re-energizing. That's what's really happening. And you wouldn't do that because you wouldn't allow an infusion of infinite energy into you. Normally, because you're boundary, I don't want some alien energy in me. You only allow it when you're unconscious, which you are in the dark light, in sleep. Then you're in what we call clear light, being, awareness, bliss. And that is infinite love, actually. It isn't any person's love, but it's every person's love. But it's the basic energy of the universe. If you let it all go, all the default energy, this is something really deep for those of us from Jewish, Christian, American, materialist, anti-Jewish, anti-Christian, whatever, Muslim, anti-Muslim. Every one of these organized traditions that want us to obey and to be like a member of the collective, communist. All of us are taught that the default is something horrible, hell. And I was recently reading one of the leading popularizers of scientific materialism, and they make a new hell. They call it entropy. And those British guys who were upholding that empire of the British life, and their stiff upper lip, and science, material science. Yes, it was God's body, but God died, don't forget him. We're God, and we're the empire. And therefore, we know about everything, and there's no God, and there's no purpose to life, and everybody's nothing, but temporarily we're alive, and we can uphold the empire. Bunch of loonies. Bunch of psychos. That's a psychotic idea that you can become nothing is a psycho-escapist idea. And guess what? I've asked many scientists this because I debate them all the time because I'm a heretic. They want to burn me at the stake. I've been working in their company because I couldn't afford not to. And I'm a heretic because I keep asking them this question, all the natural science people. I said, okay, Francis Bacon, Newton, Maxwell, Einstein, which one discovered the nothing that awaits you at death? Who discovered it? How come they didn't get a Nobel Peace Prize? I discovered nothing. Not only did they not discover it, well, then I like to ask them, did Carl Sagan show up and say, it's cool, guys, I'm nothing. You can relax. Just die painlessly and it'll all be nothing. No, he didn't. Carl didn't show up. Carl was thinking of a mango. Or maybe mango ice cream. But that's all right. That doesn't mean he's a bum. It just means he might not get tenure at Cornell next time. So, the point is, nothing is the one biggest non-discovery in history of all science. Nobody has discovered nothing. They never did. You'd look for things that didn't find them, and you might say, oh, I didn't find anything, or I found nothing. But you didn't find nothing. You just didn't discover what you're looking for. So you can't be nothing. It's not possible. You're always something else. And you're not nothing now. Your ground state of you is not nothing. If you shoot yourself, as people too much tend to do, bang, you're going to be a ghost with a headache. You're not going to be nothing. You're going to carry that headache into the Bardo with you. Oh, my head. Oh, I don't really have a head anymore. Oh, but it still hurts. Seriously. You're always going to be something. And then this leads to the wisdom of Lake Wobegon. Once you know, no matter what, no matter how bad it is, it could be worse. You have a new energy to make it better, no matter what. Right? Even if it's only a tiny little bit. You know, they have a wonderful verse in the Samadhi Raja Sutra, King of Concentration Sutra, Field Concentration Samadhi, which is, who understands karma, cause and effect, will understand emptiness, which is not nothingness. Emptiness is relativity. Who understands emptiness and relativity becomes attentive to the tiniest little details. Isn't that beautiful? That's non-duality, see. You know, the soul being. I was teasing Baba Ramdas and urging him to stay for a long time with us, because it's so important how he shows his courage in his pain. And he shows that his bliss is greater than his pain. His awareness of bliss, bliss of love, is greater than his pain when he has great pain. Because that's so powerful to us who have little pains in comparison, usually. And then when we have them, we think, oh, I can't be loving. We get all like, because our pain becomes such a big deal. Because as my old Mongolian Maharaji used to say, he used to say, everybody's right, they're real. And their pain is real, and their bliss is real. The problem is everybody thinks they're really real. And so they exaggerate their own personal realness. And therefore they become blinded to the realness of others. Because they think they're, or another thing he used to say actually, which was fine, because he used to say it so often, it was ingrained in me, it was like a mantra. So therefore I really loved The Matrix when I saw that movie. Because he says also everybody, this is the second noble truth by the way, everybody goes around secretly thinking, I'm the one. They do. And then, what do you think when you think secretly you're the one? Of course, you hide it even from yourself, maybe. Oh, no, after you. Please, you first. We do all this. We have courtesy. Societies do. Otherwise, there would be no societies. Everybody would be tearing each other to pieces. But because we're thinking that, they were all uptight. Why? Nobody else agrees with us. Not only do they not agree, they think they're the one, and they don't think we agree with them. So everybody's like, that's the really unfortunate situation of the unenlightened world, the samsara. It's everybody, I'm the one. Oh, nobody agrees with me. They think they're the one. They're so deluded. And then someone falls in love with you, and then they suddenly say to you, you're the one. Wow, somebody agrees with me. And then, if they're lucky, you think they're the one. So then the two of you finally have corroboration. But the problem is, everybody else hates your guts. And you can't really enjoy your moment of delusion. Which spirals out of control. Romeo and Juliet and the Capulets and the Montagues, they get you. But that's the second noble truth. So, and the correction is not to think that you don't exist. That's a mistake. Emptiness doesn't mean that. Emptiness means actually you are empty of any non-relational element. That means you are totally interrelated with everybody else. It doesn't mean that you're nothing. So all you're doing to become enlightened is correcting. I'm the one with, I'm one of the ones. Then there are many more other ones. Then their happiness is a bigger bunch of happiness than my happiness. Then wow, if I focus on their happiness, even if I'm in a gloomy mood, if I have bad vibes and they all have good vibes, I can ride on their good vibes. I'll be so happy. That's the switch to real compassion. Comes from that knowledge. Okay? So anyway, back to sleeping. Back to sleeping. So this is the sleep yoga. Before you fall asleep, you think, I am a bad meditator. I didn't achieve Super Samadhi. I didn't meet Maharaji. He passed away. I didn't meet the Guru. I didn't meet Mana Maharshi. But every night I fall asleep, and when I really let go, and I make a prayer before I do with intentionality, I'm not going to be lying in nothing. I'm going to be lying in Satchit Ananda. I'm going to be in the clear light. And the clear light is going to like flow. I'll be one with all beings, all Buddhas, and all beings in the clear light. We'll all meet in bliss in the clear light. Then, bang, you fall asleep. That's the sleep yoga. And that's actually the way you want to die. And you can learn to lucidly die, actually. And then you will, and that's what will go, that knowledge, whatever inner turning that you've had in your life, however minor it is, the third root of becoming aware of death and overcoming, it's not overcoming fear. We should be afraid, actually. There's no fear thing. Those guys, Milarepa didn't say he wasn't afraid of anything. He said he wasn't afraid of death. He is afraid of other people suffering. He is afraid of them being trampled by yaks, his disciples. He is afraid of the planet going into Holocaust. He's afraid for people suffering. Buddha's afraid for people suffering. That's his job, actually. Maharaji is afraid of people remaining idiots. When there's no, so you should be afraid, but not of the wrong thing. People are afraid of death when they should be afraid of life going wrong for other people and themselves. And where there's no need for it, because they're these magnificent human beings with this tremendous intelligence. Tremendous. You all have. So whatever you turn inward, whatever mindfulness you have, whatever self-awareness, whatever little level of self-restraint, ability to question your impulses, to restrain them, the negative ones, to replace them with positive ones, to think something sensible, like, gee whiz, why should I believe those people at MIT when they tell me I'm going to be nothing when I die and my life has no purpose, when they don't know what the hell they're talking about. And they love to say, what the hell, because they're not afraid of things getting really worse. They're not afraid of that, because they think the worst that can happen is bang, nothing. And they go around telling people, no wonder people, the one great sales pitch in America is antidepressants. Why? Everyone's told you're meaningless, you're worthless, you have no mind, you have no spirit, you're just a bag of water with some weird chemicals, and actually Monsanto already mixed some real bad ones in there. And who cares, you know? So you shouldn't care. That's kind of a palliative. Then at least you're not afraid of hell, supposedly, although they make you afraid of entropy, and they make you afraid of not having enough money to buy their crappy drugs, and watch their crappy programs, and their fear-inspiring, greed-inspiring programs, and fear-inspiring commercials. Oh, vice versa, fear-inspiring news programs. So you then can say to yourself, they don't know that, I'm nothing. That's blind faith, the most blindest faith. You know what I mean? You could be Moses walking on a mountain and suddenly some bush is burning, and then the bush starts talking to you, and it gives you some nonsense errand to go talk to Pharaoh, and I'm going to tell Pharaoh to like tell you to shove it. And he says, well, what do you mean you talk to Pharaoh? You can burn a bush, or you can talk to Pharaoh. No, you go talk. Some senseless thing, but at least you had an experience of something. The one thing they never experienced is nothing. And they say science privileges experience over theory. Excuse me, that's blind faith that there is nothing. There is no nothing. News flash, psychos. Seriously, even actually there is a meditative experience that will seem like your idea of what the thing might be, which is rather dangerous actually. And the only thing that saves you from that is the knowledge of emptiness. Because emptiness is the knowledge of slipperiness actually. Everything is empty of being stuck in anything. There's no, everything that is only relational. All relational things such as ourselves, body, speech, and mind, are empty of any non-relational component. And that doesn't mean we don't have magnificent enlightened experiences that feel like an absolute, but it means that even they are not. You know, Buddha, you know, Tsongkhapa, one of my great heroes in history, is a man named Tsongkhapa, like the Leonardo. I consider him the Leonardo of the planet, but he was unknown outside of Tibet and Mongolia until recently. His name was Tsongkhapa, lived in 1357 to 1419. He was a genius prodigy, you know, he could read at 3 without being taught, he was whatever, he was fantastic, had all kinds of meditative things. He attained full enlightenment, he felt, and he admitted to, when he was 41, and after huge scholarship and everything. But then what he said, I love it, he said, but you know, it was the opposite of what I expected. And everyone purports to be really puzzled by that, and I am still puzzled by it, but I have a clue, I think. Why? What do you think enlightenment is? You think enlightenment is like some big explosion, something like that. You know, they talk like that, and they have these kind of experiences. But actually, if enlightenment is defined, not as some solipsistic inner light that you have by yourself, but rather where you fell in love with all beings. In other words, your sense of identification expanded, so you identified with the entire universe, and you felt it was all your body. Then you suddenly, instead of having expected yourself to be a big super duper, you suddenly are everybody else. And then they are two kinds of, they come in a dual package. On the one hand, everybody else is already super duper, luckily, so you don't abandon them. But then they don't think so. And you suddenly feel you're all them. So I was going to have a big blow up, I'm enlightened. And then suddenly I'm some idiot who's like worrying about his guitar. And then I have to fuss with him. And like, tell him to bring me some dal chapati at 3 in the morning. You follow me? I thought it was going to be like, and sometimes some people need to think they're some state like that because they want to escape. And they're not necessarily ready to be told, you know, enlightenment is not escape from life. It's eternal life. It's infinite life. You're there as everyone's life, in one with it. They're all you, and you're them. And then you're aware of, you can do that because they really are made of bliss. Even those bugs eating mangoes are little bliss bugs. Imagine you're a bug and you're crawling around on some concrete and this and that, and then you find a mango. Half eaten because the guy didn't want to slime himself with the seed or the skin. And, it's nirvana for you. You're so happy. But you shouldn't put down such a bug. You're very happy. And you see a bug like that. But then you realize the bug can be so much more happy if the bug would be all other bugs. You know? So this is the thing. It's a scientific, spirituality from India is scientific. Science tells you spirituality is better for your health. It's better for your longevity. It's better for your future. Science tells you there's a future life, not blind faith, religious life. People remember their previous lives. People know their future lives who reach a certain level of knowledge. Actually, they warn you in the so-called Book of the Dead. By the way, it's not the Book of the Dead. That's a stupid Western title. That's not the title. The title is Book of Natural Liberation in the Between State, by hearing it, by understanding it and hearing it in the between state. That's what its real title is. So there's no, when I discovered translating it, when I did, I was so thrilled. But I was amazed, I was so surprised. There are no dead people. There are not. Nobody's dead. Death is when you hit Satchitananda, actually. That's death. Because, and why is that death? Because when you hit Satchitananda, you become not attached to your meat space, to your meat puppet. You're everybody's meat, but that's not because you're no meat puppet. You become everybody's meat puppet. And you're no longer therefore driven to grab, to just jump on some meat puppet. You're no longer driven to that. But on the other hand, your compassion, your infinite sensitivity, feels beings want to see a meat puppet who's happier than them to help them become more happy. And then that drives you. That's the engine of what they call your nirmana kaya, your body of infinite emanation. Right? That's what drives you at that time. But it doesn't really drive you. It's a free choice because you have wisdom, and you just, you know, but in a way, well, it's beyond being driven and not driven. It's the fork in the road. But don't think Buddha disappears. You know. Parinirvana, the dualist Buddhists, and there are dualist Buddhists, because Buddha didn't want to make some people who were not ready to be everybody. He didn't want to force it on them. So he let them think, yeah, nirvana somewhere. Although he gave strong clues right away that it's not somewhere else. And nirvana itself is empty, actually, of being a rigid, fixed state. Nirvana is samsara, he ultimately revealed, but he doesn't push people. But anyway, I don't know, I forgot what I was going to say. This is, in other words, the key is, you know, and don't say you don't have such a cognitive dissonant embracing awareness, because you do. We all do. We are these genius human beings. You look at your face, and we have a dog, a small Pekingese dog. If he finds a mirror at floor level, he really annoys us, and we can't watch our sci-fi movie or something. Because he just will continue to converse with that other dog in the mirror. He will not stop. Rah, rah, rah. He's a male, so he gets really feisty. And back, it reverberates endlessly until he passes out. On the other hand, you as a human being, you look in that mirror, and you see your face. And you see left as right and right as left. So you flip it sideways. And then you know, if you see a problem, if you're putting on your eyeliner, and you put it on the right eye when you know this, the left eye has a problem. You don't think twice about it. So you see your face in the mirror, and you know that's not your face. This is your face. But you correct that misknowledge, that ignorance about this thing that looks like a person through the window there, without thinking. So an enlightened person knows this is nirvana, and they see the reflection of this theater, this play, this amazing interaction of all beings, like a reflection in a mirror. And they then can correct it, they can embrace it, they see it with that kind of a double understanding. They never leave the knowledge, just like when you look in a mirror, you never lose the knowledge, this is only a reflection. You don't have to rethink that. And then you just pay attention to the details in the mirror. You see behind you in the American road a British car, a right-hand drive car back there. But you don't even notice it's a right-hand drive car because you correct it without thinking. So we have this amazing cognitive dissonance embracing mind. And that's the mind that Ram Dass teaches. That's the mind that Guruji teaches. That mind. Because you need the bliss of nirvana, of your awareness and presence of nirvana, in order to be able to react and act compassionately in samsara with other beings. Because don't tell me, you're going to be so compassionate if you're so miserable. The miserable person, Ram Dass doesn't want me jumping in on his wheelchair like, oh, okay, we'll both be here. That is the last thing he wants. He doesn't want that. He wants to be reminded of his bliss, which is what keeps him with us. Keeps him with his screaming feet. Okay, shut up. I'm happier than you. That's the only way he can manage. And it's a deep teaching to us. Okay? So are you happier?
Yes.
Are you less scared?
Yes.
Sleep as nothingness. Sleep, you must not think you sleep in nothingness. The old cemeteries are called heavenly sleep, eternal rest, you know. Nobody gets to rest. Everybody's busy. When you die, you're going to have a new thing. Then you can be rock and roll guy, or you can be chanter, or you can lose your voice. If you don't bring with you the spiritual gene that is imprinted so that you go right through the death transition, Hare Hare, Rama Rama, Sita Sita, Buddha Buddha. I'm pissed off that they all ignore the 9th avatar of Vishnu. Here's the 9th avatar. They're only into 7 and 8. What is that? Buddha's the 9th. So I want to hear Hari Buddha. You know, Rama had Sita. Krishna had Radha. Buddha only has like Vajradhara Ishwari, the goddess of the diamond realm. But she's invisible to people who think of him as a monk. Anyway, okay, questions. Who's got a question? Oh, we only have hardly any. I'm sorry, as usual. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. I really didn't mean to. Okay. Listen, thank you. Thank you, Yogi Berra. Thank you, Yogi. But we do have 4 minutes for questions. There is a question. That lady has a question. We have a mic. We have just 4 minutes before we have Hanuman. I'm wearing Hanuman in honor of Guruji. My wife got me this shirt of Hanuman, and I love it. And I bid on a bunch of Hanuman.
So
yes.
I have a question. My name is Elizabeth, and
yes.
I have a question about this idea of the soul being wrapped in karma. Because certainly,
yes.
Well, certainly there were some experiences from this morning, and we've all had our own shock therapy where we're going along in life and we think we have mastery over what we're doing in our life runs.
Yes.
Like I called mine like a finally made Swiss clock. Everything was going so perfectly.
Right.
Then I had my shock trauma, and it made me rethink this idea of, well, did that happen to me because of karma? As I always thought with other people, houses burnt down because of karma, bad karma, or working through karma. So I would like to be able to know how to think of my shock trauma in a different way.
Yeah.
Or how do I think of that now?
Well, as they say in that verse, let's just use that Samadhi Raja Sutra verse. Karma just means causation. Karma is not a fate, it's not some sort of outside power, it's not a substitute for God, there are plenty of gods. Karma just means causation. So, a bad deed has a bad result. Since the goal is to identify with all life and love everybody, and find the bliss in everybody, that means love them, okay? Then killing someone is saying, I'm not connected to that life. So it's narrowing your sense of self-identification. Saving a life, you embrace that life is also my life. So that's the basis of ethics, for example. And ethics, that kind of ethics is karma, killing versus saving life, right? And the saving life one biologically moves you to greater openness, greater expansion. You identify with the being that you save, right? Giving gifts, generosity. You enjoy other people's sense of ownership of something that you once loved. And you love them, you enjoy them in loving it. And stealing from taking their thing, you're ignoring, you're disidentified with them owning something which they might enjoy. So all the ethics of life is connected to the biology of karma, which is a biological theory about becoming enlightened versus becoming more and more isolated, more and more rigidly self-identified, more and more isolated, more and more lonely, more and more out of it. Okay? So it's really very simple. So what the soul, the super subtle process, encodes all your deeds of mind as well as speech and thought and body that are tending toward openness, and all of those deeds that are tending toward closedness. And don't worry, you wouldn't be human if in your case your spiritual gene was much more into openness. Because when you were a crocodile, you didn't easily imagine being a being with a soft skin, you know, and being having a womb, and not just dumping your eggs in the riverbank, waiting for them to crawl out and take their chances. You know, you're going to carry that in there. You're going to have to deliver it, which is a huge, hard problem. You're going to do a lot of work, a lot of labor, right? And then you have to take care of it till it's 40. Graduate goes out of medical school. And, you know, when you were a crocodile, you didn't really think that that would be the thing to do. You really liked having your big jaw, which just ate like a zebra that jumped across the river in front of you. And you had scales and this and that. The one thing you didn't have as a female crocodile, though, was any male crocodile having any kind of attractive foreplay. Really terrible. So, the point is, as a human being, you are already encoded tremendous openness. So openness is the name of your game, which could be a translation of emptiness. Since Sochi Jones is so scared of emptiness, you could call it openness. And so that's the positive gene that you want to cultivate, and therefore learning to let go. And that's why generosity is a big thing. Giving gifts, letting go of things, falling asleep, relaxing. Letting go is a big thing. Actually, it is the source of joy. Actually, if you can't let go, you can't enjoy a concert. You can't enjoy Rembrandt. You can't enjoy anything because your mind is like, oh, that's a Rembrandt. Yeah, I've seen plenty of Rembrandts. That's not Mona Lisa. Nah, I don't care. And you can't enjoy it. You can't even enjoy sex if you can't let go. Okay, so don't worry. You're very human. Last minute is not that critical. You can think of mangoes. You'll be reborn as a mango mogul. Mango selling billionaire. Whoever really markets mangoes effectively in America, which is such a delicious fruit, they're going to be a zillionaire. So you don't have to be a bug. You can be a whatever, mangoes. So the way you think about it is just practically like cause and effect, and you want to open yourself in anything that you do, and you want it to be a cause of greater and greater openness. And when you reflect on death, you will not, when you realize that death is that moment. And Ram Dass brilliantly said today, there are 3 levels. There's the soul land level, there's the meat land level, and then there's the one level. And the one level is Satchidananda. The one that in a sense is the absolute clear light, you could say, which is the stuff. It's not actually separate from all the relativity and all the meat puppet and everything. It isn't. It's what makes it all. And I was once in a dialogue with a guy called Brian Swift. And he's a Christian, and he has a whole thing about Big Bang and the creation of this. And then I realized, all of us, we're all yogis, and we're all humans, and we've been yogis in previous life. And every one of us would be stuck forever in the formless realms, where you don't have to be bothered with any other body bumping into you, which are attainable meditative states, but they're not nirvana. And we'd all be there, actually. And because concentration and without the wisdom that knows that no state that a relative being experiences is absolute. Only the relativity is absolute. So only the love is absolute. The love is the relativity. And so if we didn't know that, we could be stuck there. We all would be stuck there because we're just scared of being bumped into by anybody, right? And the only reason we're here in these amazing human entangled bodies, and we have these bodies, is we can reach out and hold hands with each other. A hand is for giving, for caressing, for receiving. This is all technology of interaction, of relationality, which is amazing. And it leads finally to Facebook and the internet, where we all have one brain. And so that is supported by being awareness bliss. Brahma, in Vedanta, Brahma, you are Brahma. Yeah, but Brahma's dreaming everybody. And that doesn't mean that everybody's unreal. It just means everybody has a kind of dreamlike quality, but they're all there. And Brahma's one with all of them, actually. In either Vedanta or, the other, whichever fork of the road which you take, is same. Okay? So that's what you do. Just be open. And do everything to lead to open. And embrace death and realize it's your chance to quantum leap into higher forms of being. Every moment is a death. And realize it could be any moment, so therefore be in this moment. And then keep your mind constantly open. And do everything possible to open. Okay? And that's the natural liberation through understanding in the between state. And we are all in a between state even now. Thank you. Good night.